What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another video. So Fortnite Chapter 5 is finally out. I know a lot of us have been looking forward to it, and honestly, you guys, I'm loving it so far. I know I'm making this video a couple days into the season, and my how to improve video is usually on the first day, but we're back here nonetheless. And in today's video, guys, I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know to start improving super fast in Fortnite Chapter 5. This video is going to include a bunch of stuff, from the loot pool and loadouts to where to land, the best ways to practice, and so many other things. Before we get into it, be sure to drop a like on the video if it helps you out, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more. I post tons of tips and tricks content just like this. And also, guys, it's always super appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It's 100% free for you, and it seriously does help me out a ton. As always, a giant thank you to everyone who uses it. But with that said, guys, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. So starting off this video, I want to begin by talking about the loot pool and loadouts. Chapter 5 basically has a whole new loot pool compared to previous chapters, and a large part of improving and performing better is obviously going to be optimizing what loadouts you actually hold. Starting off with one of the most obvious changes, and that's going to be weapon attachments. Now, honestly, in terms of tips related to weapon attachments, I really don't have a whole lot to say. In terms of how much impact it's going to have on your gameplay, weapon attachments are definitely on the lower end. They're a cool little addition, and I definitely like how Epic made them kind of flow well with the game. It's not something that interferes a lot. It's really just a cool change. As you probably know, a lot of vaults around the map have stands where you can add or change attachments, and weapons spawn with them depending on rarity. If I remember correctly, it's 1 attachment for green, 2 for blue, 3 for purple and gold, and I believe mythic weapons have 4. Now, when it comes to weapon attachments, my only real tip here is to play around with some different scopes and see which ones you prefer for each weapon. Those are going to include your ARs, your SMGs, your snipers, and even your shotguns. Whichever ones you prefer, you want to upgrade to those when you have the opportunity, and you should be solid when it comes to attachments. There's really not too much else to say. One of the most common topics in any season is also going to be what loadouts to carry, and for this season, it's no different. With pretty decent mobility this chapter, including the grapple blade, shockwaves, cars, and other stuff, you probably want to make a note to include some mobility in your loadout. Snipers are also pretty good and likely worth carrying this season. I find that they work really well, and for some reason I've been hitting a lot of people with them. So with that in mind, the most common loadout that I like to run currently is going to be an AR or SMG for close to mid-range. You're also going to want to have a shotgun, obviously. Usually you're going to want to carry a sniper, mobility, and then a healing item. So those are going to be your 5 slots. You could also consider dropping the sniper for an additional utility or healing item if that's what you prefer. Personally, I like carrying a sniper. I feel like I get a lot of kills with it and start off some fights really strong. But once again, it's a very individual thing. Another thing to consider with your loadouts is going to be whether or not you have medallions. If you do have medallions, as you probably know, they heal 3 HP per second, so you can usually forego holding any extra shields, since even if you box up for a couple seconds and do nothing, you're going to heal up. And really just carry some med kits or some other white heals to get you topped off. So overall, definitely experiment with what loadouts you hold and which guns you use, but hopefully that gives you a decent idea as to what you can do. The next topic we're going to cover is a very important one in Chapter 5, which is medallions. I know the community's been going crazy over this, and everybody's torn on whether or not they're super OP or just right, if they're a cool addition or if they hate them. And I think depending on the circumstances, we all have a love-hate relationship with these things. Whether you like them or not, they're in the game. I personally find them pretty cool. As you probably know, medallions spawn at the beginning of the game, and they're gained by killing NPCs at certain locations. Not only do these NPCs give you mythic items, but you also get these medallions, which essentially heal you 3 shield per second for the entire game. It's pretty strong, but it's not the most ridiculously overpowered thing in the game, since it does only give shield, but it still is basically unlimited shield. It's still super important to try and get these, especially if you're in a competitive game or if you're W keying. Oftentimes, this is going to make the difference between getting a kill or dying. Not to mention, they also stack, so you can hold up to 5 of these, which grants you 15 shield per second constantly. Obviously, it's not likely that you're going to get 5 in any given game, but it still is cool to think about. They definitely can be very strong if you stack them. In general, I'd recommend you go for these in one of 2 ways. You can either get it off spawn, which is by landing at or third-partying a POI with a medallion. Typically, I would go for the third-party strategy if you're in competitive of some sort, just because it's going to make it so you're going to have a fair fight against the team that has it. Or you can even W key them before they get the medallion if that's what you prefer. Another way, if you have a good loadout, good HP, and you're good at fighting, is to simply hunt for teams on the map who have them, since their general area is going to be highlighted dark yellow on the map. The way I typically like to approach it is I play out my early game normal, I land at a relatively quiet POI, and then once we're hitting the 2nd or 3rd zone, teams have finally gotten the medallions, and I pretty much decide who to W key right then and there. I kill them, take their medallion, and then wipe the rest of the lobby. It's easier said than done, but that's generally a good way to approach it. However you decide to actually approach this, you're going to definitely want to focus on getting medallions when you get the opportunity. They can set you super far ahead when it comes to winning games, and if you can get multiple, it's going to make you an absolute demon. Getting into our next section, and another super important topic for improving this chapter is going to be understanding where to land. Now, this Fortnite chapter has 11 major POIs and a ton of minor POIs, and honestly, I would be misleading you if I told you this early in the chapter that any particular spot is the best. I still haven't had enough time to practice them for myself, so I don't want to sit here and tell you guys that X and Y spots are the best, because I really don't know. But what I will tell you when it comes to optimizing your drop spot and improving your early game consistency is to look for certain factors. Any spot that you land at should have the basics. You're going to want to have loot, materials, HP, and mobility. These are pretty much the fundamentals of any good drop spot. Loot and materials are going to be self-explanatory. You want to have plenty of chests, plenty of floor loot, and plenty of each material to farm. When it comes to materials, they don't necessarily have to be in your POI, but as long as you have max wood, brick, and metal, at least around your POI, then you should be good. When it comes to HP, this can be either obtained through the spot having really good loot and therefore a lot of shield, or through other things like slurp or slat barrels, slurp trucks, fishing areas, coolers, or other forms of natural heals that spawn on the map. And for mobility, this can be anything from pre-placed launch pads, which there actually are a lot of. You've also got your cars, your zip lines, or pretty much anything else that helps you move around quick. And overall, I would recommend you find a drop spot that fits all the factors we talked about here, and you want to mostly stick to it when it comes to ranked and other competitive modes. Obviously, it's fine to mix things up. We've got this big cool map going on. There's definitely a lot of cool stuff, so don't neglect trying everything out. But when it comes to optimizing your performance and playing the best you can consistently, having one or two spots you're super familiar with is going to help you a lot. Getting into our next tip for this video though, and this one is going to be all about reviewing gameplay. As with any other chapter in Fortnite, especially since this one has a lot of major changes in terms of gameplay, one thing you're going to want to implement pretty heavily is VOD reviews. VOD reviews are simply the act of watching back gameplay to figure out what you can learn from them, and these include both reviews of pro gameplay as well as your own. Starting off with pro gameplay, you can find some pros games on YouTube, Twitch, or pretty much any other social media platform. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to sit down and really focus on what they're doing. By watching their gameplay, you can find new strategies, new techniques, and other tricks that you can implement into your own gameplay. Obviously, pros are the best players in the world, so who's better to learn from? On the other hand, you can also watch your own gameplay, whether it's through replay mode or a recording. You can do this to find your weak points and really just find areas to target and improve through your practice. So you can actually find what you do wrong in game, and then once you hop into creative, you can do something to fix that. Or if it's a game sense thing, like the way you rotate or anything along those lines, then obviously it's going to be pretty easy to target those in your games. Overall, I recommend you do a mix of both of those methods, and by doing this consistently, you're going to be setting yourself up super well to improve long term, and you're going to learn so much more than you would by simply playing the game normally. So definitely make sure you're doing those VOD reviews. I know it gets kind of annoying, and Lord knows I talk about it all the time, but it does work. And finally, guys, getting into the last thing I want to talk about in today's video, and this one is simply going to be the best practice modes. Basically, what I'm talking about is the modes that you should play to practice. Now, obviously, when it comes to making improvements in your mechanics, of course, you're going to want to put a heavy focus on creative, and hopefully you have some good maps to use. Depending on the player you are, you can spend anywhere from pretty much 20 to 50% of your time in creative, to be honest. There's a ton of good creative maps out there, and a lot of them are realistic type fighting maps. There's really a lot of good stuff to practice, so I don't blame you if you do a lot of it. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to get too in depth into actual maps or anything like that, since I do have a ton of videos about the best creative maps and stuff like that, so feel free to check those out. And aside from your creative practice, which should be important, you're going to want to focus on playing modes that put you against good players. And in my opinion, the best way to do this is through playing ranked in tournaments. Obviously, for your general gameplay, you're going to want to play ranked. It's simply going to put you up against better players, or at least players that are near your level. And tournaments are really going to help you kind of track your progress and play against really good players that are actually competing for money. Even if you don't plan on placing top 100 or making money or anything like that, playing tournaments is still really good experience. It's going to put you up against good players, and if you have competitive ambitions, it's really going to help you gain some experience and get used to that type of environment. Overall though, exposing yourself to higher level players in your general gameplay, it's going to do wonders for your improvement, so definitely make that a big focus. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with playing some pubs to mess around or something like that, but if you're really trying to lock in and maximize your improvement, then focus on these modes and you're going to see some huge improvements. Well, with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to improve super fast in Fortnite Chapter 5. Overall, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it gave you some really good ideas as to what you can do right now to improve. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it, and if you're new to the channel and you want to see more, then definitely hit that subscribe button. Also, guys, let me know down in the comments how you guys are feeling about Chapter 5 so far. I had a really busy couple of days starting out the chapter, so I didn't get a chance to play it until just the other day. But personally, I'm loving it so far. I really like most of the changes. For this first week of the season, it has been a bit iffy in terms of movement. I know that's a pretty controversial issue, but honestly, I feel like with some minor tweaks, they're going to be able to get it right, and hopefully Chapter 5 turns out to be a banger chapter. And finally, guys, if you want to show some extra support, it's always super appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It's 100% free for you. It only takes like 5 seconds to type in, and it seriously does help me out a ton. As always, a giant thank you to everyone who uses my code. You guys are amazing. But with all that said, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.